Some of you will be wondering that other than the Scrum Master facilitating Scrum event, what is the role and responsibility of a Scrum Master? What else is expected of me? Or what are things I can do to improve my team and also at the end ensure that we are able to deliver value to our end users? On today's video, my goal is basically to cover what are things you can do as Scrum Master to ensure that you are supporting your team, you are informing stakeholder, and at the same time, you are also letting the leadership and management know about the progress of your team and how are you coaching your team and guiding your team to ensure at the end of this sprint, you are able to deliver value. Welcome back to Aisha Scrum. I'm very happy to have you all join my platform. For my current subscriber and my new subscriber, I welcome you all. And thank you all for watching my videos and thank you all for all the subscription. I really appreciate it all. So now let's get into my video. So my goal today is basically just to cover some things that you will do after the sprint start and also things that you will do throughout the duration of the sprint, and also how can you guide your team to ensure that your initial sprint planning goals, you are able to meet them at the end of the sprint. So the first thing I have in my board is to question all scope change, right? I know some people will be like, oh, that should be the product owner will come to the team with a new request, or sometimes they can come from the development team themselves, like, oh, my manager want me to add this, my manager want me to do this, you know. But as a Scrum Master, so what is your responsibility and what's your role during that particular initial scope change that might be brought by the PO or anybody else? So number one, the thing you always do is to ask, oh, what is this scope change about? Ask whoever that brought it in. That's number one thing I've always done, is to ask, what is this scope change about? And then the person will tell me, okay, is this related to our sprint goal? Oh, it's not, but it's just a quick fix, it's just a quick thing. And sometimes you'll be surprised. They will tell you, oh, it's a quick fix. And that might literally take them for the duration of the sprint, right? So that's the next question. So the next question you might ask is that, okay, if we do add this to the sprint, can this wait for the next sprint? And let's say they'll be like, oh no, this cannot wait. This is something that we have to put for the sprint. We can't wait. And the stakeholder can wait. Okay, tell me the reason why you cannot wait till next sprint, right? So that's the next question you're asking. And then they'll be like, oh, this time maybe there's issue with production. And of course, there's some things that might not wait, right? And okay, sure. So, all right, let's say this is something that's emergent, right? And we have to work on it. And this is something that cannot wait. So the next thing, like, okay, thank you for bringing that up. So what we're going to be doing now is to bring it to the team, right? You bring it to the team and hopefully this will foster conversation, right? And let's say now you already did all your meeting for the day, right? And now people are, okay, how can I bring it to the team, Aisha? What do you mean bring it to the team? We've already done all of our meetings and now it's almost like 3 hours before our day end. How do I bring it to the team, right? I know sometimes it's difficult, right? Whereby you don't want to call a quick huddle, like for everyone to come in and let's have this conversation. Sometimes you can first ask them, oh, can we do a quick huddle? Like, let's just have a conversation regarding this new scope change that just been brought to the team. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it basically is to bring that particular scope change. If there's a link on Jira for the story itself, to post it in your team channel, right? And then you have conversation around that. And hopefully the PO can ask questions, like if anyone have any question, people can read about it, look at the acceptance criteria, and discuss if something that actually meets the definition of ready, right? Because you don't want to pull something into the sprint when at the end of the day, oh yes, it's emergent, but at the end of the day, it cannot be worked on. That's not smart move, right? We still go back to ensure that we meet our definition of ready. And also we have a volunteer that would like to take on this task, right? Because you can't impose that, okay, now that we have this new work, oh, you do this or you do that. No. So then we have to bring it to the team, have that conversation, and then we'll be like, okay, we must add it to the sprint. So the next thing now that we're asking as a Scrum Master is that, okay, now that we're adding this scope change to the sprint, so what's going to be the estimate, right? We still have to estimate, not because it's a scope change, then we have to skip estimates. No, we still will estimate that particular story, and the story being estimated, then now it will be added to the sprint. And as it's added to the sprint, the person that want to work on it will now assign themselves the task and work on it in the sprint. But all time, our roles and responsibilities is to question every scope change. We are not saying that we are not welcoming change. I know people are like, oh, Aisha, you mean we shouldn't accept it? No, we are not saying that. We're not going to welcome change. It's just that we have to question and coach and guide our team to ensure that that change is actually necessary, or there's some kind of change that at the end will add some kind of value. So that's why they have you there as a Scrum Master to track and monitor all of this. So next thing I have in my board is preventing from changing estimates, right? So this is something that I see this a lot at work, right? Where team will be like, oh, during sprint planning, they'll basically give estimates to a story. And midway through the sprint, and they're like, oh, I think that story should have not been a 2. That story should be a 5. And then they'll go and change it. And you, the Scrum Master, you just basically keep quiet and not say anything. That's not a good look, right? It's very important that sometimes we do not expect that teams should have a perfect estimate, right? That's why it's even called estimates. Estimation, that's something that you all will experience, you will learn, and you will grow from it by continuously improving as you work together as a team, right? It's not something that will just overnight be so perfect for any team. There's no team that will just be so perfect at estimation. I've never seen that, right? But it's very important that if you notice those changes, you as the Scrum Master should now follow up question with that particular team member. Like, okay, I understand that you've noticed the changes, you noticed the differences in the complexity with this particular work, but it's extremely important we just keep the current estimate, and do retrospective. We're going to have more conversation regarding what changed, what we didn't know, or do we have to go back to our definition of ready, or what did we miss, or throughout the sprint planning, what could we have changed and make better. So hopefully we won't continue to make such mistake, right? But you keep note to yourself as a Scrum Master, right? And you coach the team not to change the estimate. Because guess what? If your team continuously will change estimates midway through the sprint, it won't only create false scope change in your metrics, but also we get these team members to see that, oh, well, let's not just give whatever during sprint planning. During the sprint itself, we'll just go in and do whatever changes. And we don't want that, right? At all times, we also want to ensure that we as a team, we are being accountable for some of the things that we are doing, right? So that's why it's very important for you, Scrum Master, to question when a team member want to change estimates. The next thing I have in my board is basically for you, the Scrum Master, to ensure that what's currently in your sprint backlog throughout the duration of the sprint we align with your sprint goal, right? I know like some of you be like, oh, we've already done that during sprint planning. Yes, that is true. Sprint planning is just once in a sprint, right? So throughout the duration of the sprint, sometimes if your sprint length is 10 days, some of you can be 15 days, some of you can be 20 days, right? The goal is for you to ensure that throughout the duration of the length of your sprint, you are maintaining your sprint goal. And whatever that the team is working on, it's like in line with your sprint goal. And your responsibility is to ensure that if there's any change or any things that are going to be drifting your team away from that, you will come together and have a conversation and discuss why, right? Sometimes you don't have to wait for some things for retrospective, right? Especially some change that will impact the team deliverables, right? If you notice some change that can impact the team deliverable, you won't just fold your hands like, okay, let's just wait a retrospective, I'll address it. No, that's not your job as a Scrum Master. It is true, we're still going to cover all of those in retrospective, but some things you have to address it as you notice it throughout the duration of the sprint. So those are some of your those are some of your roles and responsibility as a Scrum Master. So at all time, you're questioning things that's coming in and out of the sprint. You're questioning the progress of the sprint. You're looking at the backlog and ensuring that what's in there is also aligned with the goal. And you all are having constant communication around that, beyond even your daily Scrum meeting that you might have every single day. So that's the role of the Scrum Master. By the way, if you've been finding my content valuable, like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. And if you're interested in mentorship, do not hesitate to email me at admin@aishascrumtech.com. You can also call us at 484-767-1979. Alright, let's go back to the video. So the next thing I have in my board is prevent team from splitting stories. This is another big one, right? I'm sure some of you practicing Scrum Masters will be like, oh yes, Aisha, I've seen this have happened. And some of you Agile coaches too will be like, oh yes, I've seen this have happened. And some of you will be like, oh yeah, my team do it, but it's just a way to ensure that my manager won't ask why are we spilling over all these stories and just give partial credit for what have been done, So that's not a good practice, right? So our role as a Scrum Master is to ensure that we are coaching this team, right? Because sometimes developers will see that, oh, I've done half of this work. I know my complete story did not meet definition of done, but I've done partial of my definition of done. So I'm going to split this story and complete half of it and then move the remaining story for the next sprint, just so that I won't spill over all 5 story points. I only spill over 2 out of the 3, because I've completed 3 out of the 5 story points. That's not a good practice, right? So you, the Scrum Master, now your role is to ensure that you are coaching the team and tell them that, to be honest, you can complete 100 story points in a sprint. At the end of the day, the most important is that, are we able to deliver value, right? Are we able to deliver working software if that's what your team is about? I know like some people like, oh, my team did not deliver any software. Yes, it is true. I know currently Scrum is practiced everywhere. Even not when a software development team, can be literally for any team, right? But at the end of that is that, are you able to give something to your stakeholder that they are actually looking for, whereby it's being utilized and adding value? So that's extremely important over worrying about numbers. And it's our role and responsibility as a Scrum Master to ensure that we are coaching our team's mindset over drifting them away from outputs and get them to focus on outcome, meaning the value that we'll be delivering at the end. So our role is not only to facilitate meetings. I know people like, oh, Aisha, I have to facilitate meeting, what else do I do? So all these things that you might notice and you might see in the team, you have to speak up. Either sometimes it can be in your team channel, sometimes it's during your backlog refinement, you might observe some of these behaviors. Any of your Scrum meetings, even ad hoc meetings that you might have on your team based on anything, at all time we are wearing our coaching hat and mentoring hat, right? Constantly coaching and guiding our team. So this is something that if you notice that happen, you should 100% teach your team and guide your team away from that. Because at the end of the day, if they make a mistake or they see something is not completed, it's fine. You hardly ever see a Scrum team that will complete 100% of everything in their backlog. I know some of people come for me like, oh, Aisha, why would you even say that? But that's the truth. If I'm trying to be 100% honest, you hardly ever see a Scrum team where will 100% complete everything in their sprint backlog. But the most important thing is that at the end of the day, we are able to release, right? Release on time, foster continuous improvement, foster that, accept that change, right? At any given point. But it's an anti-pattern for us to be so obsessed with our numbers and be telling team member, oh, reduce the estimate or split this story. If you split this story, we'll take half credits and improve the next credits. But we don't want that. So that's why it's very important, if you notice this behavior, you call it out and you coach your team constantly about that. So the next thing I have in my board is preventing from closing story that do not meet the definition of done. That's going back to what I was explaining about the splitting story that did not meet the definition of done. So when it's getting close to the end of the sprint and you notice some of these stories are not done, you have to coach your team and tell them that, okay, we can close the story that's half done. So at all times, we have to ensure that what we are actually considering done, right, it actually will meet the definition of done. And our role is to ensure that we do that constantly in a team, Another thing I have in my board is to encourage dev team to hand over stories to QA, right, on time, right? It's another thing that I've seen a lot in my job, whereby sometimes in a Scrum team, developers will wait till almost at the end of the sprint before handing their ticket over to quality analysts to do the testing. And thus will lead to spillover. So it's extremely important that as the sprint is going, let's say like 3 days now the sprint have passed. So you will now be reminding the dev team like, okay, as you are completing your tasks, don't hold on to everything, right? Pass some of these tasks to the QA so that they can also start their own testing, right? And as they are testing stuff, we are keeping the workflow going, right? We're keeping the flow of work. So at the end of the day, they can start to close stories. But if you're part of a team and you notice that one developer will start like 5 different stories at once, and at the end of the day, that same developer will waste like 2 days remaining before now passing everything to QA, And that's something you should call out, right? Call it out. So that's why you should have your Scrum board, right? Even outside of your daily Scrum, that's something you can track and follow up. Oh, so I was looking at the board. I've noticed that you've been working on all of this story for the past 5 days. Are you currently working on all of this story simultaneously? That's question number one. And then they say, oh no, I'm not, but I just have them all in progress. Okay, if you have all of these stories in progress and it's actually not in progress, could you please move the ones that's not in progress to do and leave the one that's in progress to in progress? All right, so now you ask their developer to actually do this. You can even ask these people offline on the side, right? So let's say this person will be like, oh yeah, no, actually I have all of this in progress. All right, if you have all of this in progress, are they all related, or do you have to complete one over the other? Oh yes, I have to complete story 1 and 2 before I can complete story 3 and 4. All right, can you just move the other ones to QE, and instead of you starting on all of them at the same? So basically, limiting the work in progress is not only can be done in a Kanban team. I find that even a Scrum team can also limit their work in progress. It can help keep the flow going, which is also very important. And if you are a Scrum Master, you notice that there is 5 days remaining in the sprint, and you see all these stories are sitting in progress, and you only have like 4 more days remaining before the sprint close, you should start calling it out. You don't go to those daily Scrum and start saying, oh, what are they working on yesterday? What are you planning to do today? What are you planning tomorrow? You're changing the tone of the whole meeting by asking them when they're done going over their story, and also using that particular discussion of discussing, oh, what is preventing us from moving all of these tasks to QA? And that's our role and responsibility, is to ensure that we maintain constant pace, right? And keep the flow going so that we'll prevent huge number of spillover at the end of the sprint. So another thing we have in my board is to escalate emergency situation to leadership, right? So there's sometimes people be like, oh, things is happening in the team. We should always keep things at team level. It is true. Sometimes some things we don't have to like escalate to leadership, right? But sometimes like things can come out of your perspective whereby it's important for you to escalate to leadership. Let's say, for example, you constantly will have this particular people from release management office that will constantly cause delay in releases, right? And although some of your team member people are thinking it's your own team's fault, right? But that's something that, oh, I don't want to escalate, because if I escalate them, I think I'm telling on the release office. No, some things is important for you, the Scrum Master, to professionally talk to the appropriate leadership regarding any struggles your team are facing, right? It's not like you are going there to call them out or going there to not say, to act like, oh, I'm saying this, I'm not going to tell. That's not good. The more informed our leadership, the more informed like our Agile coach and all these leadership people at work, the more support and the better for our team. So please be that Scrum Master that always will escalate anything that you know that your team cannot handle. And don't wait till the last minute to start calling out things like, for example, if you can't meet releases, don't wait till the last minute to start saying that, oh, my team just realized we can't. No, some things that you start noticing, you call them out early. That's very, very important. All right, the next thing I have in my board is summarize current state of sprints using metrics. So this is also very important, right? Sometimes in your parking lot, you can use this time where you can summarize your current state. Like for example, you'll be like, okay, looking at our burn down chart, I've noticed that we've added 2 and 2 sprints into our sprints, and so is working on that particular story. And we have 4 days remaining in this sprint. Currently, we did not close any story. You know, call it out. Because if you call it out to the team, they'll start thinking about, maybe I've been holding off on all of these stories in progress for too long. And then the developers will start saying, okay, maybe we should start handing over this work to the QA, right? Although they might sometimes be so quiet if you are going over this high level summary about the current state of the sprint, but I guarantee you this, they are listening, right? They are listening. Not because like they are quiet, they are not saying anything, they are not responding. That doesn't mean they are not listening to your coaching or your constant ranting about the current state of work. I think it's very important to always do that, where you go over your whole summary. Sometimes you can use the burn down charts to go over that. Sometimes you can look at the Scrum board itself and call out where you currently stand. Like, okay, looking at our Scrum board, right? Currently we have 5 story points in to do, and we have 13 story points in progress, and currently we have 1 story point under in review, and we have 0 complete, you know. and we have 3 days remaining in the sprint. And sometimes people are like, oh, Aisha, do I do this in daily scrum? No, sometimes you can do it in the parking lot, for sure, I've done that. Or you can even do it in your team channel, where you summarize things as you are approaching the end and constantly throughout the duration of the sprints, right? Always remind the team at the current state where you are. And we are not calling names. It's not even important for us to be calling that, oh, Aisha have completed 1 story point, and you, Miriam, you've completed 10 story points. No one care what your individual story point you've completed, because in a Scrum team, we're looking at the value, the overall goal of the sprint, right? We're looking at the end of that sprint. We don't care what Aisha completes. We don't care what someone else completes. We have to ensure that at the end, what we truly do care about is if we are able to deliver value and meet our goal and do all these releases and deliver the deliverables to our end user. It doesn't matter what a developer A or developer 2 do. So that's why you, the Scrum Master, your role is to ensure that you change the team members' mindset from I to us, we. Very, very important. And the way how you carry your team, the way how you coach your team, and the way how you guide your team will drive their mindset towards that. You think that's why companies, when they're interviewing for Scrum Masters, they're not only looking for someone that can run meetings, right? They look at your mindset and your critical thinking and your conflict resolution skills more than anything else. Like, they always will ask the question about the agile mindset, because that's very important. Because even you, the Scrum Master, you don't have that mindset. How can you coach your team with having that good mindset? So that's why that mindset, you're going from talking about it to now practically doing it throughout the duration of the sprint. And that's your role as a Scrum Master. If you've been finding my content valuable, please like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. And if you're interested in mentorship, do not hesitate to email me at admin@aishascrumtech.com. Alright, let's go back to the video. So the next thing I have is create mini training and workshop as needed. This is something that no one will tell you in your team to do. And sometimes recently I had one of my mentees was like, oh, Aisha, I feel like my team, they are missing in their way of thinking. I have them still working in silos. Or I have them still do not understand the importance of collaborating and the importance of helping each other. What do you think I can do to basically help with that? I'm like, oh, maybe it's time for you to do mini workshop and trainings about team building activities, or do some kind of games whereby it's going to involve them working and helping with each other to reach to the end goal. And like, oh, that's a good idea, but oh, it's not on my calendar. I was like, of course it's not in your calendar. That's something that you will have to set up and you will have to create, right? Because sometimes you can ask your team member, oh, what time would be good, or what time can we use to do mini workshops and training? Because why is that important? Because in Agile, we continuously want to foster change, right? Foster improvement and collaboration within a team. And you, the Scrum Master role and responsibility is to guide that. So your mini workshop sometimes can be, if you notice your team are struggling with estimation, you can do that mini workshop. If you're part of a team that you know that your team do not have a product owner and you want to coach and guide your team in creating stories, you can create such workshop, user story workshop. And also if like about mindset shift, you can create about workshop on the Agile mindset and why do they even have these 4 values and 12 principles, and relate it to your state of work and your current workflow. You know, that can help you out. And those things, you, the Scrum Master, create that. Next thing I have in my board is start preparing for the next sprint. You know, it's very important. Although we might be in our current sprint, we should start having discussion about our next sprint. I know for some case we already have backlog refinement schedule, right? And some of you like, oh, you already have backlog refinement schedule. We're already planning for the next 2 sprints. At all time, we have to ensure that at least we have 1 sprint ready backlog to go. So although like we might not be ready to pull those stories to our sprint backlog for the next sprint, we should have at least high prioritized story in our backlog that we know that hopefully that will be ready to go next. And we should also coach our team, not because that we've already planned for 1 or 2 sprints ahead, mean that plan, it's 100% will remain the same. No, our plan can change at any given point as long we didn't start the sprint. Until the day of sprint planning, things can change up and down, move things up and down, all of that. Not because, oh, we've done backlog refinement last week for sprint 3, then everything in sprint 3 remains the same. No, we didn't start sprint 3 because guess what? We still can go back and make changes and readjust changes in sprint 3 until we actually start sprint 3. So you, the Scrum Master, you have to coach your team. Yes, we are taking our time planning ahead. Yes, we are taking our time prioritizing our backlog. Yes, we are collaborating with our PO, talking with the stakeholder what we're implementing next, coming from sprint review, but also have the mindset that we will always respond to change over following a plan, going back to our Agile manifesto. All right, so the next thing I have in my board is track improvement item from retrospective, right? I know sometimes we all as a Scrum Master, we do retrospective, we come up with action items, and then we have a conversation about the action item. And after retrospective, then boom, 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 then it's done. Then nobody is saying anything about that. No. So our role and responsibility is to ensure that we also ensure that those action items that's coming out of retrospective, we are also implementing it throughout our sprint. We are also ensuring that we are having conversation about it. We also ensure that we are able to implement that change and promote constant improvement where we're going to adjust and do better as a team. I hope this summary about the role of a Scrum Master other than facilitating Scrum events have been very valuable to you all. If so, like and subscribe to my channel. My goal is to get to like a 10,000 subscriber by next year of August. Thank you all for watching my channel and thank you all for subscribing. I really appreciate it. I do not take it for granted. See you all again in my next video.